live. So would you like to begin?
Yes, I'm Kathy James, and I'm calling the meeting for the Personnel Commission of Ukiah Unified School District to order. It's Tuesday, April 28th, 2020, and is authorized by the Governor's Emergency Executive Order issued on March 12th, 2020. The Ukiah Unified School District Personnel Commission will conduct Personnel Commission meeting via video conference / telecommute until further notice. The meeting will be streamed via UUSD's live YouTube channel. We are now in open session. And this is the time that we would take roll call, please.
Hey, Kathy, just so you know,
Yes.
when you're reading, you have the folder in front of your camera.
Oh, like that?
So we don't see your,
Okay.
yeah, we don't see your face.
Okay, all right, sorry. Okay, I got that. That's gonna be hard because I'm gonna have to be like this, but we'll make it work. So roll call, please.
Roll call of Personnel Commissioner Kathy James, Chair.
Here.
Susan Scher, member.
Here,
Martha Giacomini, member. All are present.
Okay, thank you. I see a flag and it's behind Marty. So if we could all stand, Marty, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Ready? Begin. I
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of
of
the
the United
States of America
and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Deb. I got your text message. That was for Debbie Ornelas. She said I have the folder in front of my face. Okay. Approval of today's agenda, commissioners. Do I have a motion to approve today's agenda?
I move to approve today's agenda.
Okay, and do I have a second, please? Martha, do you second the motion? I think that might have been a second from Martha.
Does anyone else have trouble understanding Martha?
We
Yes,
all do.
Okay,
Can you just give a thumbs up that you second the motion?
Martha? Can you hear us, Martha?
Okay.
I think she was saying that she can't maybe understand us. Okay, I'll second the motion then. Second the motion to approve today's agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? There we go. I heard an aye out of Martha. Motion passes. The next part of our agenda is number 5, and it's our organization updates. This is an opportunity for the Personnel Commission, the District Administration, or CSEA representatives to make a brief announcement, report on his or her activities, or ask a question. Do we have anybody who wants to speak to that agenda item, to number 5?
I've just been working from home a bit, doing computer work. And I go into the office a day or two a week for a couple hours at most, and kind of get caught up on any things that I might have or print out, or talk to Jessica about a different invoice or something, but it's different.
Okay.
I miss it.
Did you want to say anything about it, Marty?
Not at this time, thank you.
Okay, well, I just want to say that I appreciate the diligence on your part to stay in contact with all of us and let us know what's going on from the beginning of this, letting us know what the district was doing, and as we move along, keeping us updated on everything. So I really appreciate that, Lori and Marty.
Thank you.
And Lori, happy birthday.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, happy birthday.
Thank you.
And Nicole and Martha
and
coming up here
Nicole's
pretty
is-
quick.
Oh, Nicole's tomorrow, right?
Yeah,
Oh,
May 1st,
29th.
29th. Happy
Wow.
birthday, Nicole. Okay, number 6 on our agenda is community input, and this is when members of the audience can address the commission regarding items not listed on the agenda. Members of the public who wish to address the commission are asked to please use the public comment form prior to the start of the meeting. The commissioners may ask questions for clarity, but cannot take action on these matters. Such matters may be placed on future agendas. Now, I believe there was some manner in which people could submit something to the meeting.
There is a Google form, and also we have, through this posting and other postings, let people know that they could either fill out the Google form or they could email Lori, and we have received no community comments.
Okay. Okay, so then with that, we'll move on to our consent agenda. I'm gonna need a motion to approve the consent agenda and a second, please.
Well, I don't think we have Martha's sound, so I'll go ahead and move to approve today's consent agenda.
Okay, and I'll second that motion. All in favor to approve today's consent agenda signify by saying aye or raise their hand, thumb. All in
Aye.
favor? Aye. Okay. Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, reports. At this point, our Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, Nicole Ansler, will give her report. Nicole?
Yeah, so as you all know, we've been doing remote learning and remote working. Our classified employees have been doing various duties depending on their job titles. Many have been pitching in with food service and delivery, which is now happening 1 day a week. Even our food service people, though, they're working very hard, but they're not necessarily working every day. Our food service department has tried to make sure that we've got shifts of people, trying to keep people at home as much as possible. And so that's true in all departments. We're trying to keep people at home as much as possible. Some of our paraprofessionals are helping teachers in various ways, some through like Zoom meetings with students. Others are doing phone calls, helping make sure that students stay connected. It's pretty significant learning curve for all of our in Ukiah Unified, trying to figure out how to keep kids engaged. One thing that you may not know is that some school districts either chose not to do instruction during this time or took more than a week, in some cases multiple weeks, to come to a point where they could start our instruction. In our case, students came to school on a Monday, they stayed home on a Tuesday while teachers prepped, and then starting that Wednesday we had a pretty quick turnaround. And when your work changes so quickly, it can create some confusion with people as to what their role is, because everybody's roles have changed right now, or at least their duties have changed to some extent. So I have to say, by and large, our staff has been exceptional at showing flexibility and really trying to stay focused on students during this time. Because everyone, whether they're working their regular shift or just staying at home, everyone is getting paid. And we're trying to make sure that people are helping with the grander scheme of keeping kids engaged in some way or another. we have been working with the union very closely, pretty much daily contact with union leadership, with Lisa, the union president, just to touch base on things that come up regarding classified work. So that's pretty much my report right now. It's been a very fast change, and now we've been at it for several weeks, and I have to say our staff is, I think, doing exceptionally well.
So I have a question, Nicole. Did kids, when did they all go home with iPads or some kind of electronics so that they could do their Zoom classroom meetings or?
There's been a lot of work on that, not necessarily initially, because not all of we don't have Chromebooks for every single student starting in kindergarten. It starts in second grade, I believe. And those, even those younger grades, even though they had Chromebooks, they weren't necessarily taking them home every day. And so no, not every student went home with a Chromebook when we first closed or first transitioned to remote learning. So in the second distribution of work, we also distributed Chromebooks. We've also had to survey students and staff to see who has Wi-Fi, because a Chromebook without Wi-Fi is not terribly helpful. And as you probably have heard, the state got allocated funds for wireless units to come to districts. Ukiah Unified, before we got anything from the state, we purchased some mobile hotspots is the term I'm looking for. So, and we've gotten those out to students, prioritizing students with students on IEPs and secondary students. At the elementary level students, those that have work assigned digitally also have paper packets, so that if they don't have access to Wi-Fi and have not been able to help remedy that they do have a paper option. But for the most part, we are the kindergarten and TK and kindergarten, I think some of them are doing a little less digitally, but yeah, for the most part, people are in the lower grades have their paper packets, but our teachers are still trying to maintain a level of connectedness with their students, either through Zoom calls or phone calls, or Google Classroom.
Okay. So, and also the issue, so how many places do people pick up the breakfast and lunches?
I think we have 6. I think we have 6 schools where distribution is taking place.
Wow.
And all the bus stops.
Yes,
Or a
6.
lot of bus stops.
And we have 5 bus routes going.
That are delivering the where they get the food
Right.
from.
That deliver food. Mm-hmm. Correct.
Wow. I read an article somewhere about the amount of meals that the district was serving. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's approximately 3,000 students that are being served, and each time we serve at this point, they're getting 3 meals a day for 5 days a week. So each student gets 15 meals when they pick up. And at this point, we're trying to do things more in bulk. And so we're giving like a gallon of milk, a big bag of shredded cheese, a bag of tortillas. You know, it's when we first started, it was like individually wrapped things, which one, we had to move. Yeah, well, and we had to move the inventory that we had. And when at the very beginning, we were able to give like prepared salads and things like that, but that was to move through our inventory. We ended up with a couple weeks of just getting out basically prepackaged dry goods. And at this point, we're getting bulk items, including dairy and some produce. And in this last time, we even got some frozen foods.
Wow. That's great. And the paras, are they responsible for calling kids, or what are some of the paras doing?
It varies by site, and it varies by who they usually work with. So some of them are calling parents, some of them are helping with instruction, some of them are helping with food distribution. It really does vary.
Okay. All right, well,
Well, I just have a quick question. Is there any concern about the food supply running low for the rest of the year?
When we were first starting, we had difficulty getting food delivered here. We just think our area wasn't a big priority. So there was a struggle there, but at this point, no, I have not heard concern about us not getting food. At this time, we've got the food that we need for the next couple of weeks. And then of course there are deliveries coming in all the time. And of course we can only take so much food at one time because you need to have a place to store it. So, and then of course some of it will spoil. So I think, I don't think that we're concerned about food running out.
That's good.
and this is all being done up at the high school?
So the central kitchen is where most of the food is delivered and prepared. And then some of the school sites where we have food also being distributed, we also keep some of the food, some of the dry goods there during the week. But yes, it's primarily being prepared and processed at the central kitchen and then delivered to the sites.
I think that's just amazing that we can do that and that we're doing that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is pretty,
Oh.
it's pretty outstanding.
So I say thank you to everybody's efforts that are going to that.
Yeah.
Just-
Anything else?
One quick thing, Mark, can you hear okay now on the phone? Okay, don't unmute your iPad, but unmute your phone. Oh, wait, I got it. There you go. Martha?
Yes,
Okay.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
Yay.
Can you hear me?
yes, Martha. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, good.
You don't sound like a frog underwater anymore.
Oh, that's good. Thank you.
Okay, so if there's nothing else, this part of our agenda would be our Personnel Commissioner Director, Marty Arberg, to do her report.
To the items that I listed on the Personnel Commission office update. I've been emailing all of our classified staff every couple of weeks, just trying to do a check-in with them and make them aware of any big changes that they may not have heard of otherwise. And I've gotten some really good response. So I'm happy to have that communication with our staff, even though we can't go in and see each other. I was able to go into the office yesterday and today. Yesterday was the first time I had been to the office since about the second week of the shelter in place. I've been working from home, and I have to say I miss everyone terribly. Seeing everybody's faces, even though we can see them on Zoom, it's just not quite the same. And in the meantime, Lori and I have been brainstorming and working together in this new age of technology, of looking at new and better ways of doing our processes and procedures with distance. Lori's had to administer a few exams or proctor a few exams utilizing the social distancing. But unfortunately, our EdJoin applications have virtually come to a standstill. So I Googled jobs in Ukiah and Indeed popped up first. So I went online, figured out how to post our jobs on Indeed. And Lori, how many applications have we gotten so far?
Well, 8 for sure. And then today when I kind of scanned through, it looks there could be an additional 5. So
So that's
Wow.
really exciting news
Oh,
for us because
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah, EdJoin
Yeah,
is,
fantastic.
yeah, it's great. Although on EdJoin today, we did have one utility bus delivery driver.
that's great. The other thing, the board approved the fingerprint equipment contract, so we're still moving forward with that. And
Great.
been hearing some really positive things from the county office about the contract to provide electronic forms and onboarding. So I'm super excited about that as well. In the meantime, I scanned all of our forms that we currently use so that we can email them to people so they could, we're working to figure out how to get them those forms so they can get rolling on that pre-employment paperwork. That's about it.
Okay, any commissioners want to speak or ask any questions?
So you did say that everybody is being paid. Is that what Nicole said? I missed a lot of this.
Yes,
Yes.
so schools are still being funded, so employees are still being paid.
And when you said pre-employment, what was that in reference to?
Are you talking to me or Marty? Because I think that
Oh,
was,
I'm talking to Marty. I'm sorry.
that's okay.
It's the pre-employment paperwork. So the W-4, the DE-4, those state and federal forms that we have to collect for pre-employment and employment purposes, as well as like the child abuse, neglect, reporting, all those mandates and all that paperwork that school district employees have to complete.
Wow. Wow. And how is everybody like keeping in contact? I'm just curious, as far as employees within their own groups, or transportation, or are they still all employed? Are they custodians?
Many of the custodians are, most of our MO&T staff,
Mhm.
maintenance coming to work, essential. Well, we're all have essential duties that require that they not work remotely. So most of them are still coming in, if not daily. If they're not coming in daily, they have like a rotation. It depends on their school site and how many people are on staff there. Our bus drivers have come in, most of them have come in at this point because they're helping with the delivery. Not only have the routes that we have that we need drivers for, we also need drivers to help with driving vans to restock the buses en route. So most of them are coming to work at least once a week to help with that. Other departments, like my department, many departments are doing Zoom meetings. Schools for the meetings that they would normally hold, they're still holding, and they're just doing it via Zoom or Google Google Hangouts to hold those meetings. So some departments are meeting more frequently now than they normally would, because we're exchanging these daily meetings for what we used to do in like passing. We'd see each other and just be able to address something as we pass somebody's desk. So some departments are meeting far more regularly than they normally would, but they're in the departments that I'm more fairly short, because they're just touching base every day. And then like I have daily phone calls with Lisa, who I see is joining, and with the UTA president as well. So various groups have set up daily or weekly meetings.
Well, there's so many changes going on, right? That to keep everybody informed.
Yes.
There's a lot of email communication that goes out to staff and parents, and so just trying to keep everybody on the same loop and going in the same direction.
And another thing that we've done, and I probably should have put this in my report, but it seems to address your question, Martha. One thing that in the past, we've done communications with from the district office, from Deb primarily, with the whole district, but those are more like quarterly. Starting the very first week that we started remote learning, we decided to do a weekly communication that we send out in an email to all the staff, partly to keep spirits high and to remain connected, but also to try to avoid all of us in leadership sending out multiple emails to everybody, and all of our teachers and classified employees just having to wade through the emails that some of us are really struggling to keep up with our emails. So we wanted to consolidate communication from the district office to those things that can go out once a week that we all contribute to this weekly staff update that we send. And then Deb or I will put like a message in it, and then we highlight some cool things that employees are doing, some websites or YouTube videos that they've created, or different comments that people have made, and then updates for employees that we think might help them during this time.
I know my grandson's a senior this year, and I know he's been involved. He speaks with his teacher, I think, once a week, or and the whole class is on a call, and they're all talking. So that's a nice way of still, getting that involvement with your class, and just to hear each other and learn, right?
Right.
Nicole, while you're answering questions, I just thought of something. So how is the state reimbursing districts for the ADA? Is it based on an average?
I don't know if that's decided yet. If it is, I'm not part of it, but I do know that attendance is not being taken in the traditional sense at all.
Okay, I didn't think so. Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Any other questions for Nicole or Marty? Okay, so then we'll move on to our action items. And our first item is 9.1. It's a discussion action item. It's a resolution for classified staff recognition. So we have in our packet a copy of a recognition resolution form. Let me see if I can find mine that I signed. Recognizing that May 17th through the 23rd is the Classified Employee Appreciation Week. And I believe we have to vote on this resolution. Marty, is there anything you want to say about this?
Would you like me to read the resolution into the record?
Yeah, well, go ahead, you read it.
Ukiah Unified School District Personnel Commission Resolution Number 01-1920, proclaiming Classified Employees Week, May 17th, 2020 through May 23rd, 2020. Whereas the education of youth is essential to the future of our community, state, country, and world, and whereas classified employees are the backbone of our public education system, and whereas classified employees contribute to the establishment and promotion of a positive instructional environment, and whereas classified employees support the smooth operation of offices, safety and maintenance of buildings and property, and the safe transportation, healthy nutrition, and direct instruction of students. And whereas our community depends upon and trusts classified employees to serve students, and whereas classified employees with their diverse talents and true dedication nurture students throughout their school years. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Ukiah Unified School District Personnel Commission proclaims May 17th through the 23rd of 2020 to be Classified Employees Appreciation Week. And be it further resolved that the Ukiah Unified School District Personnel Commission strongly encourages members of the community to join in this observance and recognizing the dedication and hard work of these individuals.
Very nice.
Yeah, that is very nice.
It's a very pretty certificate resolution. So any questions about this? I know that I asked Marty about the recognition that the commission, other than this, that when we have our dinner or our little party, and she said that her and Lori were brainstorming some ideas. So obviously that isn't going to happen like we had talked about earlier in the year.
Well, before the
Mhm.
social distancing went into place, we did receive some donations towards whatever recognition we decide to do. And so we will continue. I will send a copy of the signed resolution to each of our classified employees along with something recognizing them. And then make sure that they're aware that once we're able to, we're no longer under shelter in place, then we will try to put together an event to recognize their service and dedication, especially during these most
Yes.
difficult and challenging times.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that will be a special time.
Mhm.
Okay.
Real quick, I've got the original at my desk for Susan to come in when we can meet up to get you to sign this. So I can scan it to Marty so she can send them out. I mean, that's what we kind of talked about, I guess, right?
Yes.
Is there a
Yeah,
certain,
I'm sorry, Lori, so you're gonna mail it to me or,
could you come by the office to sign it?
yeah. I
Bring it
can.
out to you so you don't have to, and I'll wear
Oh,
my,
oh, sure. What time are you thinking?
well, you know what? You tell me because I'm pretty flexible with what I'm doing, so
Are
I
you
can,
there every day?
no.
Well, just tell me when you're there then, Lori.
I mean, I can be there tomorrow or Thursday or Friday, whatever works out best for you. I'm really fine.
Yeah, let's just do it tomorrow. Thursday and Friday are busy for me.
Okay, so do you want early in the morning or in the afternoon?
Afternoon, like say 1 o'clock, you'll be there?
Perfect.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll call you when I'm outside.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lori. Thank you too, Susan. And thank you, Martha, for signing it the other day.
Mhm. It was nice to see Marty in person.
Yeah, I know. I
Yeah.
agree. Mask and all.
So can I go ahead and make a
course.
motion for this?
Yes, please.
So I move to approve the proclamation, what is it called? To approve resolution 1/1920 proclaiming May 17th to 23rd, 2020 to be classified employees week.
And do I have a second?
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion passes. And congratulations and thank you to all of our heroes out there, our classified.
Mhm. Yes, our
And of
classified heroes,
course, our
hardworking.
credentialed people. Okay, the next 9.2 is a discussion, and it's a discussion regarding eligibility exams.
Well, as you know, I prepared a presentation to the Board of Trustees at their last meeting, explaining to them the merit system, specifically the hiring process and procedures. And they had a lot of questions about the eligibility exams, and they're not the only one. I've gotten questions from a lot of people asking what is required, and expressing concerns that our eligibility exams may either be excluding some potentially great employees, or it could be preventing people from even applying for fear of having to take and pass an exam. So I wanted to bring this up as a discussion item, and have a, talk about your feelings, pros and cons, and as well as the district and CSEA's feelings or desires on the topic. Included in your packet are copies of the ed code that are specific to examinations. And then I have our PC rules, and there were supposed to be two different district merit sample rules, but unfortunately only one got copied into the packet, and that is Sonoma County Office of Ed. But what I've garnered from both the education code and other districts sample rules is their interpretation of examination is different than ours. We think of it as a written multiple choice exam, when the others appear to be more utilizing oral interviews as part of their examination process, as well as the application. So if somebody indicates on their application that they have a certain number years of experience in the position or a certain amount of education, they get a structured set of points, thereby creating their eligibility ranking in the process. So I just kind of wanted to have that discussion with you all.
Can I just say that 408.4 though, it does say all entrance level examinations shall include a written test in addition to such other tests as the commission may direct. I don't know if that's something we can get around or if I'm just,
Oh, I was, what's the number, Lori?
it's 408.4.
I was wondering that.
It does
Yeah.
also,
Oh,
yes, sorry.
Yeah, it does say written tests in addition to other tests that the commission may direct.
However, education code doesn't require a written exam, so it is something that the commission could decide that to modify if you so choose.
Okay,
Mhm.
so okay, now this pertains to just the lower level, the entry level, I'm sorry, that's what I meant, entry level jobs, or we would just sort of revamp all of our ways of doing the testing or not testing for
That's
all of the positions.
That's completely up to the commission, because education code requires an examination process, but it doesn't dictate what that looks like. And as I said, other districts appear to be using the application as one method. They use an oral interview as another method of scoring people. And then depending on the position, so when you get into the classified positions or the classified management positions, they may have a task as well,
Mhm.
to make sure that people are qualified for those lead positions.
Okay,
Completely within the Personnel Commission's rules, regulations, and purview to change those if they so desire.
oh, okay. Well, I'm glad, Laura, you pointed out that section because I like the last sentence. I'm looking again at 408.4, the last sentence. And it, it gives a good summary of what kind of technical knowledge would be good to do during an interview or a test. So manual skills, physical and mental fitness. It seems like the jobs that are more physical in nature and involve less paperwork, it would make sense to evaluate the applicant more on his or her skill level than, ability to do math or whatever else is on the test that. Well, I'm curious, Marty, what the complaints you got were or the concerns people had that they were discouraged from applying or taking the test? Were they certain job categories?
So
a little bit.
actually, I've had 3 people come to me and say that they know firsthand from an applicant that they were not given the opportunity to interview because they couldn't pass our exam. The person who came to me said they would have been amazing in this position, but because the way our exam was structured, they didn't get that opportunity. Where if we didn't have the written multiple choice exams, they probably, based on their application and experience in education, would have been granted an interview where they could have been, vetted out at that point, or they could have been hired for the position. It's hard to say. And then I've had others come to me and say, yeah, no, I had somebody, but they just wouldn't apply because they're just so anxious about taking exams. They freeze.
And all, we talked about this a year or so ago. They're all in English, right? Are there any Spanish language options?
The only test that is not in English is the bilingual exam, which tests for their abilities to translate, either orally or written.
One of the interests that the district has is also to try to speed up the process for hiring people. As a school district, we're always take a little longer than a local business may because of our fingerprinting, and you have to get a TB test. But adding the exam adds to the length of time it takes to get hired and to do a recruitment. And especially for an entry-level position, most places would expect that an entry-level position have some training on site. And so, for example, if you're training for an entry-level food service or custodial position, to be competitive with other like jobs in the area, you don't want to tell applicants, well, if you can take and pass this test, we'll hire you. We're not necessarily starting out those positions at a higher rate of pay than agencies or other agencies or businesses in town. So I think we're losing out on some applicants, because if I'm applying for an entry-level position that doesn't pay very well, and I'm applying for multiple positions that don't pay very well or very high, then I think in most cases the applicant's going to go for the position that has the easier application process. I think that we want to have as many people applicable, so that we can choose people that seem well suited to the job. So that's the part of the district's interest is not just in having a different way of determining who's qualified, but it's in speeding up the hiring process.
Right.
I think we've lost people too, if I recall, who applied and who went through some of the process, but because there were other jobs available more immediately, they took those and got out of the pool for us.
So I guess the moral of the story is we should make the test more skill-based than based on mathematical or language skills, if it's not even that relevant to the job.
Well, the district would like to see if we are not required to have a test, is there a different way that we can rank people? Because an interview is a fashion of an assessment, for sure, in my opinion. And if there are different objective ways to rank people, then I think it begs the question of, do we need to have a written test or any test at all prior to the test, which is the interview? Because a lot of this is usually, you can ask people skill-based questions in an interview. And so I think if we can get them through the process to the interview more quickly, it would be better.
So this would also allow more candidates to interview.
Each job description includes the education and or experience requirements. And so when we are screening applicants, we're looking at their resume, we're looking at their application to make sure that they meet those minimum requirements. Lori and I had a discussion this week that what we're doing to try and speed up that process is when we get an application that virtually has their contact information, we immediately contact them and say, based on this job description, you're not eligible. However, if you would like to provide this, or you could, expand on that, we would love to have you as part of our applicant pool.
So
For something else.
Yeah.
So what I'm just saying, if I was to apply and I want to get a job, how long would it take before I would have that test? And how long would that process take just to start? I'm just curious.
You mean the way we're doing it now, Martha? Having to take a written test and then get to the interview process?
Right, because I'm curious, like we're saying, when you're looking for a job, it's crucial that it doesn't take quite a bit of time. So if I'm coming into the district and I'm looking to get a job, how soon we'll say, the test for me be taken? And, you know, in the meantime, I'm just curious what the timeline would be. How long does that take for somebody coming in?
Well, prior to shelter in place, we proctored exams 2 days a week, a morning session and an afternoon session. But when shelter in place, because of social distancing came into play, that kind of slowed things down even more so. Lori, when somebody applies on EdJoin, how quickly do they normally, and again, they may need to schedule to take time off if they're currently employed to come in and take that exam, you know, one of those days. But on average, Lori, what would be your?
I try, when I get the application, I try to call that day or the next day, sometime in a few days. And if they can't make it on the Tuesday or Thursday that I do it, I oftentimes try to figure out when they can. And so I'm more at their beck and call than, you know, what is convenient for me. So, I mean, I just don't see where the testing really is so detrimental to the time it takes. I don't think it adds that big of a chunk of time. But, you know, I mean, I try to get it done as soon as I see the application come in. Get them
So I
scheduled.
think one of the bigger things, even because of the amount of time that the exam takes, because again, we've been paring down our exams where they used to be an hour and a half to 2 hours. We've shortened a lot of them up. It's more how many people either can't pass the test for whatever reason, either because of their comprehension or whatever the case may be, or who don't.
We lost you, Marty.
Yeah, I lost you too.
Marty, can you hear us?
Yes.
Oh, God, you're back.
We lost you mid sentence there.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
So
Can you hear me
anyway,
now?
after they test,
Yeah.
I correct it right there. If it's a group test, I correct it that afternoon and call them the next day, sometimes that afternoon. And then they come back in, they pick up their pay packet.
Even more so than the amount of time it takes to do a test, it's how many people has a language barrier, or they're worried about taking an exam, so they don't even apply. That's more Mike.
Yeah.
okay. Yes,
So-
yeah, that can be, a lot of people don't, you know, it's not enjoyable to take a test sometimes.
Right,
It's a
Right.
little bit difficult, right? So that could be a deterrent then.
right.
Mhm.
I have a question. CSEA, I know you've talked to CSEA, and I thought they were going to come in on this
Lisa,
meeting.
would you like to share what the,
Lisa's here.
Okay, I don't see her, but
She was.
are you there?
I see.
I'm here. I'm here.
Would you like to talk to the issue, Lisa?
Sure. I think that
There she is.
I think that you can teach people whatever skill you need to teach them. If I look to more of an aptitude test, you can't teach personality. You cannot teach people skills. So if somebody comes in and they don't have the people, you're going to know that in an interview, kind of. Sometimes people do really well in interviews and they snow you, and you figure that out in their first 6 months. And then we try to, you know, they're not going to make it, we let them go. But I agree with the district stance that the testing has been, for a long time, it's been outdated. It's intimidating. We've lost a lot of good candidates that just won't take the tests because they're scared, you know, they get freaked out, or they don't pass and they would have been the best candidate. And that's sad for our kids. I mean, ultimately, we want to get the best people possible in here for our kids. That's my belief. I think that's what we all want. So I think anything that we can do to make that easier, to have a better pool to pick from, I think is beneficial to all classified employees. I mean, and you know, ultimately what we're doing here. And I think a lot of people have test anxiety, you know, so we have a lot of Spanish speaking individuals in our community. And a lot of them it's hard for them to comprehend the questions, let alone comprehend them in a manner where they can multiple choice the answer. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't translate correctly to them. So then they miss out, and that's unfortunate. So I think that if we could, even if we could do, I know when I was talking to Marty, she was talking about being able to maybe do some sort of aptitude test online while they're doing their application, like answer 5 questions, so that gives the interview panel at least something to go on. Oh, they would handle it this way. Situational, right? What would you do if you saw 2 of your coworkers arguing in front of students? Whatever, you can pick whatever. Because most of these people we're going to see by their application what their experience is, right? So they've worked here, we can check their references. And, we're going to be able to, I agree with Nicole on that, we're going to be able to, in an interview, get the best candidates based on their experience. And then it's up to the interview panel to pick who answers the questions in the interview correctly, right? So I think that we're doing a disservice to our community and our students by allowing these tests to continue and then missing out on good candidates. I agree that there's got to be a way that we have to evolve, right? We stay stuck or we evolve. So we need to evolve. We're 2020 now. So, we're all virtual. We didn't expect this stuff to happen, but bam, here we are. My son's distant learning. I become a 3rd grade teacher, bilingual, which I'm not bilingual. But we're making do because we have to evolve. We adapt. We're humans. That's what happens. So we need to also do that in our workforce. That's my take on that, for what it's worth.
Well, I think, you're raising really great points, and I feel pretty convinced just by the comments I've heard that maybe we should just do away with the written test. But I'm also concerned about great candidates who have anxiety about an interview, who may be really concerned about how they present themselves. But if they're applying as a bus driver or a janitor or a food service worker, they can be fabulous in the context of their job, but they're uncomfortable sitting at a table with 3 or 4 people and having to tout their experience and their abilities. So I would love to see something like some kind of skills test, like, we interviewed Marty and we interviewed Lori and the candidates for the personnel director. We really, put people on the spot and said, what would you do in this situation? And talk about yourself. And a way that would be really, equivalent to the job and relevant to the job, like show us how you would fix this engine or, make this salad or whatever it is, not a time consuming thing. But I think, for me, if I'm interviewing someone, I would rather see how they do in the job setting than even how well they answer questions in an interview.
But I think that that some of our interviews incorporate questions related to that. Our entry level, we've not had demonstration of skills. Some of the higher level technical jobs will have them give a demonstration of skill based on a prompt that we give them. But I think that the distinction here is that right now the assessment is the gatekeeper in getting the interview. No one gets hired without an interview. So whether they have anxiety regarding the interview or not, everyone's getting an interview. But some people aren't even getting to be considered for an interview for lack of having taken or passed a test. And one of the things, as we've been talking about different ways of looking at this, is that depending on what we come up with, we may find that the end result is that we have more people tying for ranks, because right now only the top 3 ranks move on to an interview. Normally that's just 3 people. Normally you don't have ties, because if I'm taking a test and I get 69 or I get 89% and then somebody else 88%, that 88% person, if everybody else was above us in the 90s, that person may not be getting an interview, but they may have had, that's still a pretty solid score. So I think that we may find more people tying for ranks and being able to see more people get the opportunity to show and explain what their skills and background and understanding are, which I think would be very, very beneficial. It would make that interview, probably the interview process would be long if we end up interviewing more people, but that's a problem we would love to have.
So are you suggesting, Nicole, then just doing a weight test for all job categories?
I'm not suggesting that at this time. I think that we need to work on this more. Marty and I have spoken, Lisa and I have spoken, Lisa and Marty have spoken, and we've got all kinds of ideas on things that we think would be preferable, that would still facilitate the ability to rank people based on objective measures, because that, that's one thing that is markedly different in a personnel commission or in a merit district is in non-merit districts. When you get the applications, you do your paper screening based on whatever criteria you may have, and you may decide we want to interview 5 of the 7 applicants. In a merit district, the only people that ever get to an interview are the top 3 ranks. And so I think that if we're going to maintain a merit district, then we need to have that objective way of moving people forward. We need to do it quickly, efficiently, and in a way that's fair. So I think we've got lots of ideas, and I think that we need to come ideally with an idea that we all jump on board with, realizing that ultimately it's not, the district doesn't get to decide this, but I think that we're moving in a direction where we can make a joint recommendation.
I would I would recommend, and I don't know how the other commissioners feel, but you guys are, the 3 groups have already been discussing it. You're hands-on with it. We're not. This is probably the right opportunity and time to be thinking outside the box, and staying in the spirit of us still finding the best candidate for the job. I would just like to see the CSEA and the district and the Personnel Commission work on this, and whatever ideas you come up with, come back to us. I don't know, does that work for you?
Yes, it works for me as a representative. I also think that whatever changes we want to recommend, we need to run through legal counsel before we bring it to the Personnel Commission for approval.
I would expect that too, yeah. How do the rest of you feel, Martha and
Well,
Susan?
it's just interesting to hear all the different ideas coming out. So it's really something to think about.
Yeah, I mean, like Kathy said, you folks have the experience, we don't. So yeah, I would love for you to come back with concrete suggestions, and we can mull it over. But yeah, right now, I mean, we're just sort of, freelancing here, or jamming, or whatever the expression is. So yeah, if you want to come back the next meeting, I'd love to hear concrete suggestions.
We will.
Martha?
I was just thinking, I'm just thinking back on when I was in the district and what the test consisted of and I think what it tried to show. In food service, there was math, there was different things that pertain, measurements. I always remember we were always studying before a test to make sure we knew our, quarts and gallons. And these were maybe like just a general test. I don't know if it even has to be, I don't know if that's something that has to be even just a general knowledge, but just have that part of the hiring process with no failure or, just a general knowledge. I don't know. I'm just thinking back of what the test meant when we took it, so.
Well, are you in favor of the 3 groups talking about this and seeing what they can come up with as a solution?
Sure, that sounds great.
And Marty, and Lisa, are you there?
Yes.
Anyway, are all of you on board to do that?
Yes, I'm completely on board.
Okay. Marty?
And I just want to say, I'm really relieved to hear that we don't necessarily need to do the written test. For some reason, I was under the impression that that was required. And I always actually wondered why it didn't seem that relevant. So I'm very glad to hear that.
Oh, okay.
Perfect.
Okay, so are we good with that? The district and the commission and CSEA will get together and brainstorm this, and y'all always come up with really good ideas, so. I don't know what else more the commission could say other than go for it.
That's perfect. Just exactly what you
Right,
just
I think
said.
that's good.
Okay, all right, so let's move on. 9.3 is a discussion. It's regarding staffing needs and recruitment. And it includes our 2018-19 statistics for comparison purposes.
I emailed you today our standings, which haven't really changed much, especially with our shelter in place. Lori has tried to contact the directors to try and schedule interviews, but it's been difficult because they're very, very busy with this new level of their jobs. And so we haven't made a lot of progress. And again, as I reiterated earlier, we've had one and now one additional applicant on EdJoin. And then we've gotten a few new ones this week on Indeed. So we're trying to figure out how to move forward in this process. We're already getting announcements or requests for vacancies for next year. So looking at moving forward, how best to start filling those positions, given where we are right now in the social distancing and shelter in place.
It's got to be so difficult, and I so appreciate you still trying to make this all work. Any questions, commissioners?
So for example, with bus drivers, you don't know if there will even be a need for just bus drivers in August because you don't know if the kids are going to be in school. So yeah, you're just kind of flying by the seat of your pants, wondering what the needs. You can't hire unless you know there's a need.
It's a day by day, hour by hour.
Yeah.
The uncertainty.
Well, we're all learning flexibility.
Most
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. Well, you're appreciated.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions about the list? All right. 9.4 is a discussion, and it's regarding our first draft of the commission's budget for 2020-21.
So this is our first draft, and I just kind of want to get some feedback from you all as far as what priorities are. I kind of made a few minor shifts, reduced our advertising budget because we're finding that the advertising on the buses isn't as visible as we had hoped. And some of the other like methods that we use for advertising, we're just trying to get more on the surveys that Lori gets back, and comments from the community and the public and the staff as far as how did they hear about us or what made them come and apply for various positions. The other thing I did was to increase the interfund, which is 5750, for several years now, and that's the
Mhm.
money used for our annual recognition and a few other things. And it's been the same amount for several years. Well, the costs have gone up, not to mention the number of classified employees that we're recognizing. So we felt it was important to raise that a little bit. And also our professional and consulting costs, because we're going to be adding the live scan where we have the ability to do fingerprinting directly. And so we were adding a little bit into our budget to cover those costs as well. Early when I was preparing this, we were advised that the governor was anticipating a 2% COLA, which is a cost of living adjustment, but now we're hearing not so much. So again, this is just a snapshot of the information that I had available when I was preparing this document, and more than likely it will change
Mhm.
between now and when we adopt it at our next meeting, and when we present it to the board for any input that they may have. But before I did that, again, I just want to kind of hear from you what you would like to see more of or less of, or have questions or comments about.
Marty, you mentioned, I was a little confused when you said the advertising went down because you were questioning how visible some of the ads were. Are you talking about the buses and the freeway sign?
Right. So the billboard has been a great advertising or eye-catching tool. But if we're not able to update that, then there's no sense in continuing with that particular advertisement. I'm working with Doug Shout, the communications officer, and trying to come up with a new idea for a different billboard. But if we're not able to do that here in the next month or two, I just don't see the benefit, because after driving by those billboards for so long, you start tuning them out.
Mm,
And so they're not as effective.
mm.
The buses, we had advertising on the back of a couple of MTA buses and Lake Transit buses, but I personally haven't seen them as much as I would like to. And so if I'm not seeing them, I have to assume others aren't seeing them. People aren't talking about them. So now I have to question, is it a useful use of our resources?
Mm. Okay, that makes sense.
I'm
Well,
sorry.
we've tried a lot of different things.
Yes, we have.
Yes.
You've only brought that down. Your suggestion for the budget is only just about 3,000 less than last year.
Yeah, 4 or 5,000 less.
Mhm.
Or yeah, my math is 3,400, right?
Yeah.
3,600, yeah. Okay. Well, it seems like the money paid off because you're doing, it seems like you have such an easier time compared to a year ago. So I think you can give yourselves a little pat on the back for it was money well spent.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think a lot of things, a lot of things could change on this budget. I mean, you may not be going to any conferences. And I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
We have a substantial amount of money left in our a couple of different areas, just because we're now doing training via webinars, and most agencies are recognizing that because they don't have the expense of a facility and feeding people and all that it entails, they're able to offer these things free or at a very reduced rate. So we're not spending the money that we were ourselves in traveling to hotels and travel expense itself.
right.
And Lori, are you at the top of your pay scale? Is that why you don't have a salary increase?
I just now saw that too. I don't think so. I don't know. I don't have that.
Those numbers came from from fiscal services.
Yeah, I that's true. I did notice that. They're there's got to be a mistake.
Probably.
Mhm.
Let's hope.
I mean, I'm at 18 years, so there's a few more to go there.
Yeah, so you should have gone up $2,000 or $3,000.
Yeah.
Based on the past.
But the way the salary schedule is set up is that there are increments where you're frozen for a couple of years. You
Oh.
get longevity added, which is in a different pool, but you're frozen from year
Oh, that could be.
Oh,
and
that's
from
actually
16 to 20 and from 20.
Right.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
your salary doesn't
Oh.
change, but you do get years of longevity added.
Hmm.
And I think we always get that COLA, which, well, not always, but
Right.
what makes it go up. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it's the
true.
first,
The $5,000 difference in the recognition expense. I mean, does that really go with the amount of the number of employees that have increased? That's a lot of increase.
It's a combination. It's a combination of the increase in costs, meaning how much it costs to do a barbecue per se, or an event similar to that, and the number of employees. So between the two of them, and we can reduce that. I just, like I said, it's been there looking back the last several years. And unfortunately, because the 2017, 18, and 18, 19, it says that's actuals. So it started out at $2,000, but then that money was transferred to food services to pay for those materials. So at the end of the year, it may be zero or maybe 525. Like last year, we bought the cups as opposed to doing barbecue. So that money that was in that pot got moved to supplies where we paid for those materials.
I see.
mm.
Okay. Well, if we had, yeah, well, this is just interesting at this point.
True, true.
Okay, any other questions?
No. So are you gonna bring this back, Marty? And it sounds like you're gonna have to approve it at some point.
I am.
Yeah.
I have a meeting scheduled with fiscal services, I think next week, so that I can look at more accurate and up-to-date numbers and let you know what that looks like along the way. I just wanted to kind of explain a few little things and see if there was something poignant that you guys were like, absolutely not, or I want to see this instead, so I can make that happen and discuss that with fiscal next week.
I think given the circumstances, it's as clear as it can possibly be.
Clear as mud.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
And-
Looks good.
you need to present this to the board at the May meeting, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so then
And then
we
it
need
goes-
to approve this at our next meeting.
It has to be approved and sent to the county superintendent before May 31st.
Okay.
It's just
Okay.
difficult, the timing of all of this, because the governor does his May revise. So we're supposed to approve a budget based on our best assumptions. And all of that changes within the months of March, April, and May.
Mhm.
If I bring it to you too early, it's a moot point. But if I wait too late, then it makes making changes really difficult and complicated.
Yeah, I think this year is gonna be a total, I mean, for next year, a lot of exceptions. So, okay, well then we'll see it come up again soon.
Room, but again, I just want to make sure, is there anything that you guys aren't seeing on here that you want to see, or that you're seeing on here that you don't want to see?
No,
No,
I don't think so, Marty.
Thank you.
okay. Though, just
Good.
double check about the salary for Lori,
I will.
Oh.
okay?
Mhm.
All right. Okay. Number 10 on our agenda, this is public comment regarding our closed session. Were there any forms on that?
No.
Okay, so at this point in our meeting, we are going to go into closed session.
Bye.
And,
See ya.
uh,
So
okay,
Stay safe.
Susan and Kathy and I and Nicole, and I will release Lisa and the public.